Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me once more. We are to week 4, but giant number 3, the giant of depression. This is a fairly, really complicated topic. Well, we couldn't leave it out because whenever you're talking about moving forward in victory, there's probably no greater giant that's going to stand in your way than depression. And I can testify to this personally. Depression is very complicated. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist by any means, but it can come from different sources. So I also touch on it when I talk about illness and mental illnesses. But in this particular chapter of the book, when I talk about depression, I'm talking about the depression that comes from, not the depression that comes from having illnesses in your brain and different imbalances and so on. I'm talking about the depression that comes from our reaction to things that happen in life, to negative experiences, and the depression that follows that. So I look at some of the symptoms of depression in the book so that you can recognize whether or not you're in depression, because believe it or not, some people are in depression and do not even realize that they are depressed. And so I want us to recognize, how do we even know we're depressed? I remember in the midst of my depression years ago, I didn't want to get out of bed. I journaled a lot. I think journaling was what kept my sanity back then. I cried a lot, morning to evening, and just wrote, and everything seemed gray. And that is how I knew that I was battling depression. And certainly I was very stuck at that point in my life. One of the reasons that I absolutely love the Bible is because it is full of real stories. This isn't a fiction. These are real people that went through real things. And our same mentor, David, that we keep referring to and we've used as our source of encouragement at the very beginning, he was a man that went through some serious depression. Read the Psalms. Read the Psalms. David's emotions went up and down and up and down, but every time he managed to get on top of it, so it never was able to topple him. Even Elijah, I mentioned, Elijah was phenomenal prophet of God. I called him fire from heaven. And next thing you know, he's like, well, just let me die. Because he too tackled depression. So if you are tackling depression, if you are depressed in some way, or you're going through a season of depression, there are a lot of people, great people, that have also battled this giant. So you are certainly not alone. In the book, I gave a modern day example of a pastor. But I could easily have used a CEO, a counselor, a reverend, anybody that's in authority, anybody to whom people looked for guidance. So this is a little story, the fictional story that I wrote. Pastor Clarence had been feeling very down of late. In fact, he barely managed to prepare for and deliver his weekly sermons. But that was his secret. He could not tell anyone. After all, he was the one assigned to offer hope. He was supposed to be the strong one, invincible and gloriously positive about life. Clarence felt like a fraud. He felt like he was living a lie. Ever since his wife had left, he had cried himself to sleep every night. The church's financial responsibilities seemed to be crushing him, and he could barely bear to hear another painful story from his congregants. His own story was enough for him to handle, far less everyone else's sorrowful woes. He felt trapped, and he did not know where to turn. After all, a pastor does not seek therapy. They are the ones that offer spiritual consult. He knew he could not keep it up, as life seemed a little bit darker with the passing of each day. Pastor Clarence was secretly sinking into the depths of depression. So oftentimes, many times, when people are in places of authority, they're suffering from depression and they do not seek help because primarily, one, fear of exposure, and two, the possible effects that it may have on their role. And this is really damaging, and it is really a very sad thing, and that's why sometimes you see they just disappear, or heaven forbid that they even commit suicide or what have you, because they feel, whenever you're in this position of authority and people looking up to you and you're battling depression and you feel like you have nobody to share it with and you cannot trust to tell anybody, and there you are suffering in silence. similarly, it breaks my heart. It really, really does. Every time I hear a story of some young person, 18 years old, taking their life. I think there were 2 of them this year here in Barbados. I mean, it is absolutely heartbreaking. Heartbreaking that people can reach this point of complete hopelessness. Heartbreaking that they couldn't find anybody that they felt could help. Heartbreaking that those that are around them didn't see the signs. It's a completely heartbreaking thing. So let's tackle this giant. Let's really tackle this giant, because if we don't, you never know where it may lead to. But I'm encouraging you today, because I suffered from depression, but I was never suicidal. So even if you never reach that point of suicidal thoughts, depression is still a great crushing force that you need to tackle, because it can send illness. Some of the weapons I talk about in the book, it sends illness. There are so many physical illnesses that are attached to depression and anxiety. I mean, physical things you feel in your body. It's not in your mind. Aches and pains and all kinds of things. When you're depressed, it wastes significant chunks of time, because remember I said sometimes you don't feel like getting out of bed, or you just sit and you binge watch a show because you don't feel like doing anything else. When you are depressed, it is an enemy to you moving forward. It wastes your time. Another enemy was partial blindness of the good things in life. I talked about how it kind of puts a gray, you kind of like put on gray shades. Everything seems gray from morning to night. Everything you see, everything you read, you see the negative side of. And then I talked about spreading the yuck. And oftentimes when we are depressed, we do not recognize that depression can be very contagious, and it affects atmospheres. So you are depressed and you go outside and you're sharing your depression, even probably not intentionally, in most cases not intentionally, but you carry this aura when you're depressed that just emits into the atmosphere. And then I talked about it can lead you into ingratitude, because what it does, as you have on your dark glasses, you completely forget about all the good things that are happening in your life. So this is really something that needs to be tackled, really something that needs to be dealt with if it is in any way in your life and you're trying to move forward. So how do we fight, though? How do we fight this thing? Because it seems, this is something that really, when it gets out of hand, as we can see where it can lead, you get help. Please do not feel that you have to go this alone. We are never met. God said it's not good for man to be alone, because he knew that we would need each other. I encourage you today, please listen to me very carefully. If your depression is getting very, very dark, or it is happening too frequently, or the spells of depression are lasting really long, please, I cannot say please enough, reach out to somebody. Even if it is a crisis hotline, reach out to somebody. Don't feel you have to go this alone. If you don't have anybody in your family you can talk to, or a friend, or a reverend, a pastor, somebody you can call a hotline, because this can really get out of hand. And sometimes, as we have seen, it just takes one moment, it just takes 5 minutes of complete darkness to make you believe that your life has no purpose and for you to take it. So this is a serious topic, whether or not you're get to the point of being suicidal, or whether or not it's just making your life dark and glim. So if you're coping with it, meaning that, it comes and it goes, and some days you're depressed, some weeks you're depressed, certain things cause you to be depressed or not, you still want to eliminate as much of it from your life as possible. So you want to learn about joy and hope, and I talk about our weapons against depression. And when I talk about joy and hope, I make sure that I'm not talking about anything flimsy. Happiness is flimsy and dependent on our emotions. It comes and it goes. So you're happy one day, you're happy the next. Somebody makes you mad, you vex. So what I'm talking about is a lasting joy, and what I'm talking about is the joy of the Lord. And we talk about hope in the Lord, the God kind. We talk about things that are solid and can give you something to hold on to. When I talk I talk about these in the book. I talk about hope and joy, and the surprising role that giving can help to fight depression. You have to read the book about that one. So once again, I want to encourage you. I have been there. It stops you from moving forward. It comes and it goes. It spreads to others. And I really want us to confront this giant of depression. There are suicide numbers in your country. If you feel that you have nobody else to talk to, there's a suicide number in Barbados. I think it was 429-9999. I don't know if that's changed. If it has, somebody drop it in the comments. In the US, it is 1-800-273-8255. But there are lots of resources online. As I said, please don't feel that you have to go this alone. So when I talk about the quick tips in fighting depression, I remember, because I said depression comes from various sources and it can come from imbalances, all that. You have to kind of figure out what kind of depression that you're really dealing with. But in the book, mostly I was dealing with, okay, this happened to me, I got divorced, somebody died, and I went into depression kind of thing. So some quick tips that I gave at the end. I said diagnose your depression and seek its source. Why are you depressed? Why are you depressed? Are you depressed because this is where your life is? Are you depressed because somebody did you something? Are you depressed because somebody left you? Are you depressed because you have no money? Or are you depressed because there's something going on in your body, or you have some imbalance, or something is out of order? You have to figure out, why are you depressed? And I say find your triggers, because with any emotional journey, I love to talk about emotions, because I used to be one of these people, emotions were just all over the place. And I like to talk about emotional intelligence and emotional management. And I always say, find your triggers. What is it that sends you spiraling into depression? You need to figure this out. Maybe keep a journal, or voice notes or something. Every time you find yourself in depression, work backwards to figure out, okay, what really sent me into this depression? Do not get sucked in by the depression. This is a giant that you have to fight, because the consequences can be deadly. You have to fight it. You have to fight it. You have to fight it with all your might. You have to ask for help and fight it. Find the tools, the actions, the pastime to divert your mind. Sometimes, if it's not like a serious heavy depression, you might be able to go on in the garden. You might be able to watch something. You might be able to listen to a song, something that uplifts your soul and takes your mind in a different direction, so that you can gather and take control of your emotions. So you got to figure those things out for yourself, because something might work for me. Dancing and listening to music might work for me. That might not work for you. You might have to go play golf. You might have to talk to a friend. Some of you need therapy. Yes, you need therapy. You need counseling. You need counsel. Some of you have to go and get professional help. I put as one of the tips, because this works for me tremendously, check your eye and ear gate. Oh my goodness gracious. What are you listening to? Who are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you taking in to yourself? If you know that you battle from depression, I would suggest strongly that you try staying with those positive things. Watch what you're watching, watch who and what you're listening to. Stay away from negative people. Oh my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. You don't want to fan the flames of your depression by hanging out with people that are negative. Even if you have to be alone, it is better than going. Remember, I said sometimes depression is just like a fog and it is spreading. Stay by yourself than to be around somebody that's negative. Seek help. My last tip is seek help if you're not managing alone. I cannot express this enough because of the dire consequences. Don't play with depression, people. But it is, if it has not reached that really terrible, dark, persistent place, you can probably get on top of it. And that's why I give us some tips in the book. So I no longer deal with depression. I did for many years, and that's why I know that there's hope. I know you can get to the other side of it. I know you can learn to I can actually sense it now if it's coming near me. If I even start to feel depressed, I know what it's about and I fight it. I do not allow it to come in, but this is after years of practice and battling it. So I really encourage you to try to figure these things out in your life so that you can move forward, you know. But you can get to the other side by yourself, figuring the things out, or by getting professional help. Okay, thank you so much once again. I hope I didn't impress you by talking about depression. Thank you for your time. And what is our next giant? Join me next week when we talk about one of my favorite topics, the giant of unforgiveness. You don't want to miss that one, people. Thank you and take care. Have a blessed week. Bye.